Hi, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I had to think about that for a second. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hello to Kathy in Virginia. Hello. It's great to see your smile today. Hello, Jane in Pennsylvania. Nice to see you. Hello, Karen in Arizona. You're looking very wrapped up and warm and cozy. Deborah in Kentucky. Hello. Nancy's Irish Cow in Washington State. Hello. Hello, Annette in California. And Carol, hello, nice to see you. And Judy in Ohio, hello. Carolyn in Idaho, great to see you today. Beryl, Colin's mommy in Chicago, also looking very wrapped up and lovely today. Jennifer Cutting, great to see you. Yay, Jennifer's here. And Pete and Bill coming in from Florida, great to see you guys. I'm glad you guys are getting such a long visit. That's great. Steve in Baltimore, great to see you. And Adele in the DC area, nice to have you here today. Beth, nice to see you in Kentucky. Luda in Victoria, glad to have you again with us today. Bonnie in Idaho, hi there. And Lucy in Milwaukee, hello. Anne in the DC area. Anne in New York, hello. Isabel in Florida, hello. No accordion today, I see. Barb in, oh, there it is. No straps. Aha, you fooled me. Barb in Kentucky, great to see you. Sheila in Florida, hello. Great to have you again today. And Dan in Virginia, hello. Dion in Massachusetts. Storm in Massachusetts, hello. Kathleen in Albuquerque. Gary, great to see you today. And lots of folks who don't have video on: Melinda, Kachina, Terry and Diane, Lois, Joni, Katie, Gwen, Lynn, Sandy, and lots more folks coming in right now. Glad to have you all here with us today. Thank you so much for joining. And hello also to everybody on Facebook Live, especially Mary from Omaha and Tiggs from Massachusetts, who jump in every day. If you're new to us, please put your state or your country into the chat box so we know where you are coming from. So welcome to the Washington Rebels Carpe Diem Arts Daily Antidote of Song. Also, if you're new to us, we do this every single day, every day, as for like 200 and some odd days now. And we get together, we sing a song, we might chit chat a little bit, have some discussion, might just smile at each other and give each other some virtual hugs, help us get through our day, our week. And also in support of the amazing performing artists who've been leading us in song, help them during a time that's really tough for artists. So on that note, we do take donations, and all of the donation money goes directly to the artists who lead us in song. Thank you so much for all the support that's been coming in. We really appreciate it. And we like knowing that we're going to be able to keep this going month after month. In the chat box, there will be the lyrics. There will also be my email if you'd like to get on our daily email list, or if you just want to make some suggestions of artists to have, or you have questions. I love hearing from folks. Please keep the emails coming. And I want to thank the tech crew who is in the room today. That's Colin Bills, production director at Washington Rebels, and often appearing here, tech support and other kinds of support crew. And Nico Rossi DeMattis, also along on this ride for some 200 odd days. Thank you to both of you for all the amazing work you're putting into this program. And I just want to say a quick shout out that tomorrow we are starting our voting songs week, going through starting tomorrow all the way through actual election day. Please take the flyer that I sent, and if you don't have a copy of it, you can email me and send it around and let everybody know. We have a week of amazing artists and a week of amazing co-hosts, and we cannot wait to sing a lot of voting songs, some of which may be, here's a little warning, a little irreverent, but that's okay. We can live with that. All right, I am super excited to have in the room today singing with us Steve Winick, who has been with us before as both a song leader by himself and as a duo with Jennifer Cutting, and has also been one of our amazing co-hosts, especially during the Archive Challenge week. And we have another Archive Challenge week coming up November 16 to 22 with an outrageous roster of artists. So that flyer will be coming out shortly. Steve, I know that you are going to sing an amazing song today, which I can't wait for you to tell everybody about. And I'm also excited to hear about your upcoming event on Halloween. Welcome, Steve Winick.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm here with my pet bat, and we're here to tell you about a couple of things. But first, I'll mention, Joe just mentioned a Halloween event. Well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to thank Washington Rebels, Carpe Diem Arts, Joe Rossi, Nico Rossi DeMattis, Colin Bills, and all of you for coming as well. But I'm going to tell you about this Halloween event, which is called Haunted, an online Halloween extravaganza. It's being run by the Carter Hall School of Folklore and the Fantastic, and it includes fantasy authors, poets, storytellers, and at least 5 of us are folklorists with PhDs, believe it or not. And so there will be all kinds of workshops and readings and fun things to do. It runs from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with breaks. So it's an all-day extravaganza, and the link for how to get tickets is going to be in the chat. Yeah, that's in there right now. So that's one thing, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And what I'll be talking about is supernatural ballads of the supernatural. And my presentation is framed as a supernatural ballad cocktail party, because I also am going to provide recipes for cocktails that you can make and have with some non-alcoholic and some with alcohol that you can have while we're talking about supernatural ballads. So I'll actually plunk another link into the chat presently that will have information on that. So now I'll talk a little bit about the song. So this is one of my haunted Halloween ballads, and because of that, it's not maybe as cheerful as the songs we often do here in the Daily Antidote of Song, but it is a hopeful song, and I'll explain why. So the lyrics to this song don't make it, this is true of a lot of Irish ballads. The lyrics to this song, I should say Irish language ballads, because this is a vernacular translation from the Irish Gaelic of a song that's primarily collected in Irish. And Irish ballads work a little bit differently from English language ballads in that it's often the case that everybody already knows the story. And so the ballad kind of alludes to a story without telling the story in full. And that's true of this song. And so what's happened in this song, and so this is in a way an archive challenge song as well, because in our archive at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress, where I work, we have 3 versions of this ballad in the Irish language, which were collected in the early 1950s by Alan Lomax. And the story behind this ballad was explained for Lomax by Seamus Ennis, who was the kind of leading Irish folklorist at the time and also a singer. So he's one of the people who sang this song, and he also explained what was going on. So in this ballad, a young woman soon after her wedding has been abducted by the fairies. And one of the things that the fairies often do when they abduct young women is they put them to work as nursemaids. And so she is essentially a babysitter for babies inside the fairy mound. So she's imprisoned in this hill, looks like an artificial hill, and she can see out, but people outside can't see in. So she can see sort of, the countryside around, and not that far from the opening of the fairy hill where she can see out is a ford at a stream. And it's often the case that women did laundry at fords and streams because they could wade right out into the stream, and if there was a flat rock, they could do their laundry on the rock. So this was a place where local women did their laundry. And this young woman who was imprisoned in the hill was able to find out by subtle conversations with the fairies how she could be rescued. And she decided that her best bet was to encode instructions for rescuing her into a lullaby. And then she would sing that lullaby to the baby at the mouth of the fairy hill so that she could be overheard by the women doing their laundry. And then those women could bring that information to her husband, and he could come and rescue her. So that is what this ballad is about. This is the lullaby that this young woman sang to the baby. And one of the things I love about this is that feminist folklore scholarship has done a lot of work on analyzing coding behavior. That is, when people encoded subversive messages into permitted forms of communication. And this is an example of that phenomenon, right? She's giving information that she's not supposed to give anyone, but she puts it into this lullaby because she knows she's allowed to sing lullabies. In fact, it's her job to sing lullabies. And so she's able to get the information out through this permitted form of communication. So this is The Stolen Bride, and it does have both a refrain and a chorus. So I'll teach the chorus, and the refrain just consists of the shohulo parts. So the chorus is entirely nonsense. These are words that are used by Irish women to put babies to sleep. So they're like rockabye baby or things like that. They're not actual Irish words. They're just nonsense words. And the chorus goes, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo. Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo. Woman washing by the streamside, Shohulo, Shohulo, listen to my lamentation, Shohulo, Shohulo. A year this day from the world I was stolen, Shohulo, Shohulo, imprisoned now in a hill of sadness, Shohulo, Shohulo, ha. Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo. This is now my palace of shadows, Shohulo, Shohulo, with all fine foods, ale, wine, and brandy, Shohulo, Shohulo. Beeswax candles and honey golden, Shohulo, Shohulo, and men for years in chains lie groaning, Shohulo, Shohulo, ha. Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo. 7 miles to yonder townland, Shohulo, Shohulo, find the man whose wife has vanished, Shohulo, Shohulo. He must pluck the white herb growing, Shohulo, Shohulo, at the entrance to my prison, Shohulo, Shohulo. Ha, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo. He must come with black knife ready, Shohulo, Shohulo, stab the white horse of the gentry, Shohulo, Shohulo, into a lion they will change me, Shohulo, Shohulo, but hold me tight and do not fear me, Shohulo, Shohulo. Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, ha. Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo. The Stolen Bride.
Steve Winick, thank you so much. That was a lot of fun. Sometimes it's actually really fun to just sing nonsense sounds and be able to sort of part the words part of your brain from the music part of your brain. And I was really enjoying just the lulling of it and not having to think about any meanings, at least during the chorus part. Then it was hard not to think of the meanings during the verses part because they are deep and complex. So I had this genius idea just a moment ago, if I must say so myself, that rather than have me be in charge of the discussion, that we could bring in somebody who is not only already familiar with a lot of the music that you sing, but is an actual formal official folklorist, ethnomusicologist. So Jennifer Cutting, since you are in the room, how would you like to be the first person to ask a question that you probably already know the answer to of Steve Winick? And
can you hear me okay?
We can.
Well, as I was listening to Steve sing this song, I was reminded by some of the transformations and transfigurations, and hold on tight no matter what I turn into, which, you know, I'm going to turn into some ferocious beasts, and I'm going to shape change in some scary, scary ways. Which happens in Tamlin as well. And Maddie Pryor of Steel Ice Band has humorously pointed out that this is a fantastic metaphor for marriage.
Right.
But we won't talk about that. I was just going to ask Steve, since we've also had questions from and comments from Carolyn Wolf and Jeff Ashford as well, asking Steve to talk about the changeling legends. Were they native to the Irish or more Central Europe? That was Jeff Ashford's question. And Carolyn Wolf's question was, I was just going to mention Tamlin, as I'm rereading a favorite book called Tamlin by Pamela Dean, which is based on the song, the ballad. She placed the fairyland in a college campus in 1969 in Minnesota and made the Queen of the Fairies a classics professor.
That's funny because I read Tamlin by Pamela Dean when it first came out, and I didn't remember any of those details. So that's that's amusing. Great. That's a great book. Yeah, I remember it being great, but I didn't remember it being in 1969 in Minnesota. So, so I'm sorry, Jen, you were.
Yes. Why don't we start with Jeff's first question about the changeling legends, whether they were native to the Irish or whether they were more native to Central Europe.
Well, I mean, it depends on to what extent you want to say native, but they were certainly native to the Irish. But, you know, the Irish weren't initially native to Ireland. Everybody migrated there from somewhere. And since we don't know how old such legends are, they could have migrated to Ireland with the Celts in their migrations from Europe. So it, you know, but there's no indication that they were imported to Ireland late. They are certainly there from in Irish as well as in English from an early date. So yeah, so changelings are a common phenomenon, and people have various ways of explaining why this legend might have developed. But essentially, changelings were substitute infants that were left in the place of real infants when the infants were abducted by the fairies. And so they looked kind of like regular people, but they didn't develop correctly, and they died young, and they were, you know, all kinds of things are said of changelings in tradition. And some people have suggested that, of course, this could have been a way of explaining developmental diseases that people observed, and you know, they didn't have a good explanation for them. So that's one theory on the changeling stories. But of course, it's also the case that the fairies are generally associated with not only with stealing babies and with stealing mothers in order to raise babies, both of which are in a lot of folk stories, and this ballad is one of them. Now, Jennifer mentioned Tamlin, and it's very true that, and some of you in the comments mentioned Tamlin as well, and it's very true that this song has things in common with Tamlin. So what's happening at the end there is, and you get it. This ballad is kind of interesting because it has the lullaby, but then it doesn't tell you what actually happens, right? She gives the instructions, but you don't actually find out the outcome. In Tamlin, there's a sort of longer story, and you find out the outcome. And during her rescue, she pulls Tamlin. In the Tamlin version, the genders are reversed. It's a woman who's rescuing a man. And when she pulls him off his horse, the fairies change him into all kinds of frightening animals, including a lion, in order to try to make her let go, because if she lets go, then they can keep him. And so she has to hold on to Tamlin through these scary transformations. And the question of did does she change back into a person? The answer to that in the Tamlin versions would be yes. You hold on to them long enough, and those transformations end, and they become their regular self again. So we can assume that was the plan in this song. That the plan was not for her to be rescued as a lion, but for her to change back to herself. And I'll mention that it's interesting because fragmentary Irish verses and English language verses have been collected over the years in Ireland, which have been identified as versions of Tamlin. But it's possible that they're actually versions of this song, because some of them are fragmentary enough that all they feature is the rescue, and it's hard to tell which song it is. And a good example, there was one collected from a very well-known traditional singer named Eddie Butcher, and it just had the rescue stanzas, but it mentioned Halloween, which is typically mentioned in Tamlin. In Tamlin, the rescue occurs on Halloween night. In The Stolen Bride, I don't know of any version where that's mentioned specifically. So Eddie Butcher's version mentions Halloween, and because of that, of course, it was identified as a version of Tamlin. But after he finished saying it, he said, "Aye, and that's how she got her. That's how he got his wife back," which obviously makes it a version of this song, because in Tamlin, no one gets their wife back. So what seems to have happened is that these two songs have interacted in complex ways in Ireland, and so we have things that look like versions of Tamlin whose overall plot may be similar to this, and vice versa.
And
So they're
Steve,
related songs.
Judy Cook would like to know, are
Yeah.
these transformation elements, are they found in a lot of places? She
Tra-
asks.
transformation into well, I would say not specifically in the sort of rescue context. I don't know of a lot of other versions of that, but certainly being changed into animals by the fairies is one of the things that you have to worry about in other European countries as well. So you could be, she turned me into a newt, but I got better,
And
But-
on a more serious note, our friend Amy Appleton was wondering whether a song could be doubly encoded. She asks, could this song have been sung by a mistreated woman as a plea for rescue?
Yes, that's another possibility, obviously. So there's a double encoding possibility there. Another thing that was interesting that I had never thought of until so I'll mention that this plot of a woman encoding information about how to rescue her into a lullaby because she's being used as a maid by her captors, as a nursemaid, I should say, by her captors, is not unique to Ireland, and it's not unique to this song. And in the archive, we have a song that's a Lebanese song in Arabic that was collected in Florida in 1939, which has this same plot. Only she hasn't been kidnapped by the fairies, she's been kidnapped by Turks. And of course, at the time that the singer was born, Lebanon had been part of the Ottoman Empire. Um, so that is subversive in a different way, right? It's identifying the power the state power as being these oppressive captors, and the rescue as being a way to get out of that. So I mentioned that Seamus Ennis collected this song in Ireland and then sang it for Alan Lomax. He collected it from two women in West Cork, one of whom was Elizabeth Cronin. And he took Lomax to visit both of these women. Maureen O'Sullivan was the other one. So Lomax recorded both of them singing the song as well as Seamus Ennis singing it. And Mrs. Cronin's, he had a little conversation with Mrs. Cronin about the song too. And he said, well, why didn't the fairies understand what she was doing? Didn't the fairies speak Irish? And Mrs. Cronin kind of laughed. And the idea that you would encode information in a song because people who didn't speak Irish um, would then not understand it is very interesting too, because of course, during Mrs. Cronin's lifetime, England had been Ireland had been colonized by England, and most of the English didn't speak Irish. So yes, you could also spread subversive messages that way in the language. And so that's another sort of political aspect that this song might have in some versions when it's sung. So yeah,
Great.
that was a great question.
Just an interesting note here. You are making cocktail recipes based on some of the things mentioned in the songs. Do you have any theories on what the white herb in the song could be? He must pluck the white herb growing at the entrance to my prison.
That's a really good question, and I did not, I'm afraid, include that particular thing in any of my uh, recipes. I didn't put a specifically white herb into any of them.
Could be cow parsley, could be Queen Anne's lace.
Right, right. It's not actually mentioned specifically. So, good question, but
what did you put into your cocktail?
I put all kinds of things. So there's a lot of beeswax candles and honey golden. So I put honey liqueur in some of them. I'm just searching right now for my I've got a little website, web page with all my cocktail recipes in it. But unfortunately, I didn't make it easily findable because it's not something it's only for this one event. So I'm going to distribute the link. But now I don't have the link. I forgot to get it ready.
Just to mention that Carolyn Wolfe notes that Carter Hall is the name of the forest in Townland.
Yeah, Carter Hall is a little spit of land between the Ettrick and the Yarrow in Scotland, and it is where much of Tamlin occurs. That's right. So
we just have one more question that I could see from Karen in Arizona. She asks what the technical difference is between a refrain and a chorus.
Well, that's an interesting question. So it's not that those words aren't used consistently by everyone. So that's one of the reasons why it's confusing, because some people call a chorus a refrain and vice versa. But the way I use them and the way a lot of folklorists use them is that the refrain is a repeated line that's sung in between other lines, and the chorus is more like a verse length element. So in my version of those words, the shohulo, shohulo, which occurs in the middle of the verses, is a refrain. And then the long form, Shoheen, 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 shohulo, shohulo, is the chorus. And that's how most folklorists talk about it. And that's because ballads have a certain number of typical verse forms. So some of them are just, 6/8, 6/8, ABAB rhyme, right? That's common. But another version is ones that have repeated lines in between their action lines. So, are you going to Scarborough Fair? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. That parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and a version of the she once was a true love of mine occur in every single verse. And folklorists have typically referred to that as the refrain structure, as a refrain ballad. And so, because of that, within folklore studies, refrain typically means those lines. It got set at that meaning about 100 years ago, and that's the way people tend to use it. But in the rest of the regular world, people sometimes use it to mean a chorus as well.
Thanks, Steve. Well, we're right at 12:30, so I'm going to hand you right back over to Joe. Joe, take it away.
Thanks, Jen. That was an absolutely amazing discussion topic. I love a folklorist with a folklorist, especially when you can bring in the topic of cocktails, which is always really fun. I'm sorry, but I thought, at least in my childhood folklore collection, Queen Anne's lace is something that was poisonous and you're not supposed to eat it. But that might just be because they were trying to keep me from eating all of the many various and sundry flowers that looked like fun. So, Steve Winick, would you give us the chorus, not the refrain, a couple more times?
I will.
Before we leave. Thank you.
And I will, so I will get the link for that cocktail page to Joe, and she can distribute it to all of you. So, all right. So this is the chorus, which actually includes the refrain in this case. The refrain is also in the chorus, and these are baby dandling words from Ireland. And again, it goes like this. Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, 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 ha, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo, Shoheen, 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 Shohulo, Shohulo.
Thank you, Steve Winick.
Thanks to everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much
This
for
was so much
being
fun.
here. So before I say goodbye to everybody, thanks also Jennifer Cutting for the
Yeah,
the
thanks,
great
Jen.
chat again. Before I say goodbye to the folks on Facebook, I want to tell the folks in this room and on Facebook a very, very quick little magical story since we're in the middle of magical singing. So there's someone in this room who will understand this story personally. So I was driving in Northwest DC, maybe a little bit lost, which is my nature, about a week ago. And I, out of the corner of my eye, sort of far down the sidewalk, saw two women walking with their backs to me. And I immediately said, that's Fran, which makes no sense because I have only ever seen Fran in this Zoom from the front. And I absolutely recognized Fran from far away, from the back. And so I took my car and turned and drove down the road and leaned out the window and said, Fran? And she said, Joe, from the Daily Antidote. So that is the magic of community, right? You can't explain to me any which way that you can make logical sense of that experience. So Fran, we're super happy to have you in the room from the front or the back. Thank you for being here today and so many days. Thanks to all of the rest of you. What I think it means is if I happen to be driving down the road in Idaho or Arizona or California, I'd know you too from so far away. It's about what we've all done in here. And I believe we're really carrying that and we'd recognize each other through any other platform, Zoom or otherwise. So thank you for all of you being here day after day and building this fabulous community. Thank you again to Steve for the great song and Jen for the great discussion. Thank you to everybody on Facebook Live for joining us. I might not recognize you since I've never seen you, but maybe I still would. I love you all. Thank you so much again.